Jeff Jarvis, author of an upcoming book about publicness and privateness. Jeff, WikiLeaks, what's your position on it?
I'm not sure there's a position to be had in the sense that I think this is just going to happen. A lot of comparison was made with the Pentagon Papers, and a lot of argument was made they're not the same. But I think what is true is that there is more data that's reachable by more people and more easily spread. And so it's just going to happen. Is it right? Is it wrong? Well, I think it was wrong to put lives at risk. Yes. I don't think absolutely everything should be public. But I also think that the only solution to leaks is transparency. And the problem is we have an abuse of the confidentiality rules for government in this country. I think we should switch to a default of publicness. And if we don't, we're not going to trust the people who declare things secret that we have any faith in them. And that's the problem here.
What do you make of Jay Rosen's argument that this is the new form of journalism?
I don't know that even Jay goes quite that far. I think that it's part of the new form of journalism. The fact that there is just data and information that can get out there. What interests both Jay and me is that Assange and WikiLeaks chose to go to The Guardian, The Times, and Der Spiegel, and I think that the journalists added value in this case. Assange's motive was that if they gave it to them exclusively, they would pay more attention to it. It would be seen by more people and have more influence. They also were able to add perspective. In their accounts, they did edit out the things that could be dangerous to people, and I think that's adding value. They added triangulation and more. And I think that's where journalism goes in the future, is that we have to recognize that it becomes very easy and free for anyone in a community to share news and information. Those tools now exist. There's no value added in distribution. So we as journalists have to ask where we do add our value, and there are many places where we will add that value. In reporting, in context, in training people how to do things, in correcting things, in putting people in contact with the world and with officials. There's a lot of ways in which journalists will add that value, but simply turning on the press ain't it anymore.
What would a young journalist trying to make their name learn from the WikiLeaks experience, and how might they actually report it? How might they develop their ideas using this?
Well, I'm tempted to say that they should build a tool like WikiLeaks, but I asked Alan Rusbridger, the editor of The Guardian, whether The Guardian should have built WikiLeaks, and he said no. He said because they do different things, and The Guardian would be more vulnerable to attack. And I think that's right. But there are tools that journalists should be building that enable people to share information on their own and not believe the journalist always has to be in the middle of it. Right before this taping, I listened in on the call for TBD.com, which is Politico's local site soon to launch in Washington. And they have a network of 128 bloggers they're going to work with. They're not going to steal their content. They're not going to worry about that. They're going to send traffic to those bloggers and try to work together in a new ecosystem. So at City University of New York Graduate School of Journalism, where I teach, we are trying to teach entirely new skills. We're trying to figure out how to teach it. How do we teach journalists to become teachers in their communities and help people do journalism? How do they become curators and rather than trying to rewrite everything themselves, collect the best? How do they learn how to promote things, including themselves, in this world where you've got to stand out? How do you deal with being part of data feeds and RSS? How do you turn data into news? Texas Tribune finds most of its traffic now goes to data pages. These are all new skills in addition to multimedia journalism.
And is this new ecosystem, does it offer promising new business models?
We think it does. At CUNY, we did a lot of research last summer in new business models for news in a market, let's say like Boston, where the paper folds. What does it look like? Well, we see, look at Washington. You have 128 bloggers of quality that TBD has done a deal with. You have an ecosystem emerging. We found bloggers in towns of about 50,000 people across the country, not everywhere, but across the country, who are bringing in $200,000 revenue a year today. We believe by creating networks around them, which Mark Potts at Growth Spur is trying to do, they could get something like $350,000 a year. They could hire 2 or 3 full-time people to do content. They could afford to have independent citizen salespeople selling ads. Yes, I think that at that level, you find that the entrepreneurial level of journalism, as Reid Hoffman would call it, the free agent nation level of journalism, there will be the opportunity to be successful. You'll also find companies involved in this like Patch and the New York Times who are doing these blogs. And you will still find news organizations, I think. But the point of all this is, though, that you're going to find more organizations, each one much smaller. The efficiencies are great. What we don't talk about here is that. So TBD added 50 people to the staff All Britain had at its local TV stations to cover all of Washington. The Washington Post has 750 in the newsroom, probably 2,000 employees all around. So the Washington Post can't shrink down to the right size for this new and very efficient world, and that's why we're seeing so much pain.